I finally decided, when you get a proper look at this keel, well, both of the keels of course, and the hull, and you see how now even that isn't the gel coat under there. There's still more of this. This is anti-foul, and it's been painted on the hull, but then each year it's been painted over without taking the old stuff off. And these are marks where I've been sanded it, and you can see here the lip. See that lip there? This is about 3mm deep, and that's where I tried. Was that when I tried the scraper? I think it's still not down to the gel coat, but you can see how bad this actually is. And I keep finding bits that scrape off, but I don't seem to be able to get it all off. So I've decided anyway that I'm going to have the entire hull below this blue boot line, all the way you can see the red paint, and the keels I'm going to have them both sandblasted. And what that should do is it should get, see, there's another bit there, look, see all that? It should get all this off and leave me with just the gel coat underneath that I can prime. Now this is a patch where the sandblaster who was doing another boat, and he came over and he said, I'll show you what I can do. Now this is the gel coat, but obviously that's unpolished, and that's why it looks like that. But you can see the tar stuff underneath, and there's a couple of millimeters of anti-foul on top. Now for me to get the entire boat down to here would take at least a month of non-stop work and hundreds of sand discs and what have you. He also did a patch on the keel. Now again, I mean, I went through so many discs and messing on trying to get this keel. See there, I scraped that, but that took me ages just to scrape that little hole in the anti-foul. Now he brought his sandblaster over. This is slightly rusty on top because he did it the other day, but it took him seconds to do this little patch here, and it's just brought everything off. There's old prime, there's VC tar which they used to use on steel keels, and there's of course all the old red anti-foul on top. It's several millimeters thick, that. So that's what he can do. He can take all of that off with the sandblaster. Right back here, I mean the stern gland shaft, you can see the build up round here is just absolutely monstrous. I've done the propeller myself, but that took an awful lot of scraping. That was several hours just to scrape all the stuff off the propeller. And so as you can see, if I stand back here, and you can see that's my hand against this part of the skeg, so you can see how big that is. And of course it's got to go down the entire hull, that keel, all the way down here. And remember, of course, underneath, this boat's like 12 feet wide, so all of the underneath as well has to be done. So that's what he's doing today, everything under the line. Now I'm going to redo this line, but I'm going to epoxy paint that, but I'm going to do that later on. What I want is the anti-foul off first and get the hull epoxied and primed, and maybe one coat of anti-foul for now, and I'll put another coat on before she goes in the water. So touch wood, he's doing that today because the weather's going to be great, I hope. And once he's done, after work at 4 o'clock, I'm going to put one coat of epoxy prime on the entire hull. That should take me up to bedtime, and then that'll just at least protect it until tomorrow when I can get another coat on, and I might even put 3 coats on, who knows. So that's my day. How's your day starting out? So this is how it's looking. As you can see, that's all the old nasty anti-foul, and this right down a nice tasty gel coat. Might have a bit of fairing to do, but that's okay. Bit of a mess as well, like, as you can see, but what the heck, it needs doing. It's got to be done. It's going to be much easier to sort out later. So I'm glad to see they're going on well. Well, it's just after 4 o'clock and they've been at it since 8 AM and they're packed in for the day because they can't finish it today. That's pure fiberglass. The gel coat's gone completely there. The keel is absolutely amazing. I'm chuffed to bits. I mean, you can see it's been quite pitted, so I'm pleased that's done, and we'll get that keel epoxied up and primed and what have you. It looks there, that's resin, but it's on a level with the gel coat, so I wonder if that's been some kind of repair in the past or something. Maybe osmosis, I'm not sure, but there's quite a lot of areas where they've gone through the gel coat down to the fiberglass. So, and they've done underneath, well, on one side they've done underneath, they've done a propeller. I'm not sure that was a great idea because they've blasted the grease holes. So I don't know how sensible that was, and of course in that bearing in there I'm sure there'll have been some sand got in, so I'm not entirely certain if that was a great idea. And on the anode, I mean, it's brutal. Look at that. That blue is a little kind of a matte gasket that sits under the anode, and it's just torn it off. But all under there is done. It looks like he's done this side of the keel as well, but not this side. So it's Thursday today. He's coming back on Tuesday apparently to finish it all off. That's looking like probably most of another day as well. So right, okay, well, I can't do what I wanted to do tonight, but there we go. To bring you up to speed for those who don't know, what happened was I hired somebody to sandblast my hull, and we agreed on a price, and he did a job. Now, as you can see, as I mentioned before, the gel coat's coming through, but anyway, I'm going to fix all that. So he did half the hull, and then he stopped and he ran out of time because he said it was much more difficult than he thought, which I found surprising because he'd already done a test on the keel and the hull. That was his test on the keel, and that was his test on the hull, and he said 1 day will do it. I'll be able to do your entire boat. So I was like, okay. So anyway, couldn't fit it in, so he rang me back and said, right, I can't come back tomorrow anyway, I need to come back in I don't know, a couple of days or something it was. So I said, okay then. So then he rang me back a couple of days later and said it'll be a few more days. I said, okay then. And all the while I'm sitting with me lovely shiny new stripped keels going rusty. which is not the end of the world. I'll just strip that off again, but it's not the point. So what happened then was he texted me and said, I'm afraid I can't do it. I need another full day at your boat to finish it off. All this side needs doing, obviously, as you can see. All this, there's anti-foul. I think I've showed you all this before, but anyway, just in case. Come on, camera, what's going on with that camera? There. Yeah. There's anti-foul, and then underneath the anti-foul is VC tar, and that's the killer. And underneath the tar is some more anti-foul, and then there's a gel coat. Anyway, so he said, I'll come and do it, but I need another £300. And I said, no, wait a minute, we agreed on a price, $450 for the job finished. Now you're saying you want an extra $300 to finish the job. You just can't do that. So he said, well, that's all I can do. I'm not going to finish the job like for no extra money. And I said, well, in that case, you've only done half a job, which he has, half the hull. So I said, I'll give you half the price, which is, but I said, it's a tiny bit more than half. So I said, I'll give you $250. So he agreed to that. Now where that's left me with is this side of the hull still needs doing. So if I stand back, that's the bit I did have to work today with a grinder, and I'm trying out a nice ferrite, a ferra rather, flap disc from Lidl or Aldi, one of the two. They were cheap anyway, so I'm trying one of them, and it's really aggressive, but that's kind of good. So I'm just using the tip to kind of get, I mean, that looks black, but actually there's hardly any black VC tar left on that, and that's what I'm using it for. I'm getting the top coat of anti-foul off, and then the VC tar underneath, and that's all I'm doing. And then what I want to do is come back with a higher grit, like 180 or something, on my sander, and fare that in nicely before I gel coat the whole lot again. It's going to be gel coated about 3 times and primed and all the rest of it. So anyway, well, it's that long that the light runs out. So that's how much I've got to do. I finished work and I did this bit. It took me about an hour to do that. You have to be really careful because I don't want to grind straight through the gel coat. So it took me about an hour. So if you see it, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17 hours plus the keel, 18, 19, so it's about 20 hours of work. So 20 hours, what's that? 8 hours a day for 2.5 days. That's not bad, really, if I can keep it up. That's actually not bad. It took him, it would have taken him 2 days to do it with a sandblasting machine. So if it takes me double that time, just using a grinder and a sander, then, you know, that's not bad, really. So that's where we're at. But I have got some tikka chicken waiting for me, and I'm going to make some stuff to go with it. So, good night. I didn't think to take a video, but I've sanded down one of the keels, or the face of it anyway, so kind of a quarter, if you like, and covered it in phosphoric acid to get rid of, well, to stop the rust anyway, not get rid of it. And then I've just done 1 coat of Penguard HB, which is a epoxy primer, and 4 coats to go. Looking good. Finally starting work on these darn keels. Right, just to bring up to date, I tried epoxy primer on the keel, that's the white, but it didn't really take, so I was told to give it 4 weeks to cure. So I sanded through a lot and done the inside. I've just done one keel, and then I started putting polyester resin on, and I don't know if you can tell, if I get across it, I don't know if you can see how pitted that is, and that's not the worst. And the other keel, I think you can see clearly there the pitting. It's very deep in places. So what I decided to do was use thickened polyester, and yeah, that's gone off already, I'm pleased to say. I put a coat on a couple of hours ago, and you can see there the deep pitting, and it's worked a lot. This whole area here, these pits were way deeper than they are now, so the plan is working. Thickened polyester, basically put on several coats, and it smooths out the pitting and gives it some level of waterproofness too. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to mix some more, and I'm going to see if I can show you how to do this. Nice. So SP microfibers. So I've been playing around with the amount needed to add, and it's quite a lot if you want to thicken effectively. And I do need it to thicken effectively because I needed to fill those holes without falling back out. Something of a task. Obviously polyester is quite thin, it's not a very viscous fluid. So it needs quite a lot of help. Shouldn't really do this in the wind. Right, I think that's about the amount I put the last time, which I found was a workable amount. Probably just where the level of the fluid, the resin comes to in the cup, the filler or thickener is probably about half as much in the cup. maybe a third. It's not really an exact science, unfortunately. So this takes a lot of mixing in to make sure it's all dissolved. It's worth the effort. Right. Now we've got 200 mils of resin, so we need about 2.5 mils. Oops. Just realised I propped the camera up with my acetone bottle, so I'll just pour out a smidgen of acetone. Get that ready. Hardly goes in. That, trust me, will be very, very clean. Acetone just cleans through absolutely anything. So, mix of hardener. Bit of a novice at this. I'm a lot of a novice at this. I'm a lot of a novice at taking video too, so excuse me if it's not great. Now what I'm using to put it on is this, because scrape across the top but fill the pits and the voids. What I'm finding is you can't just do this action or that action. You have to do this action. You have to approach a hole. If there's a hole, you have to approach it from that direction and this direction and up over and down over, and that's the only way you'll get them filled. So I can't hold the camera and do it. Just put some resin on there like that. And hopefully you'll see, so there's an area where it's still pitted, so I'll just go up and then I come down like this, up, down, and there we go. And now that's becoming flatter all the time. I can't actually see the screen of my own camera, so I don't know what I'm showing you. I hope I'm showing you what's happening. But yeah, that's filling in the pitting, so I'll do the rest of the keels. So I've just finished another coat using foam rollers that people recommended, and I won't be using them again. Absolutely appalling. But that's in total now 5 coats of polyester resin and pitting. It's still there to a small degree, but there's really not very much. There's a few drips, but I'm sanding every couple of coats as well to get rid of the drips and stuff. But I think this was the worst keel. The pitting was absolutely appalling on this one. Absolutely appalling. The entire keel was covered. You can see this patch here, that was actually 3 times as deep, and it was everywhere. So what I've done, I've put 2 coats of polyester resin on, and then I used 2 more coats of thickened polyester resin using that microfibers I showed you earlier, and then another coat of polyester resin, roll it on with a foam roller because somebody recommended them, and I don't recommend them. They literally just fall apart when you're using polyester resin. They just fall apart on the roller handle. So yeah, the rest of the ones have been thrown out. So I'm chuffed to bits with that, and I think tomorrow, if the weather is fine again like it has been today, I think it's going to be a day for putting the epoxy on, the epoxy resin, which I'm going to do coloured. I'm going to do 1 coat of red and 1 of blue, so that I know where I've covered, because it's difficult to tell sometimes. So good work today, whole day's work, doing various things, and not very successfully using the thickened polyester to build up things like this where there's a bit of a gouge out. I think I need to get a proper filler really for those little bits, but never mind, the rest of the rudder's looking fine as well. Okay, see you tomorrow. There's not going to be much resin work done today. What was done yesterday should be okay. It should have gone off way before the rain came late last night, but as you can see, it's coming down reasonably hard, and it's scheduled to get worse. So I may end up doing something inside. I haven't done an update for a little while because I've just been so busy wanting to get the work done and forgetting about taking videos and photographs and whatever. Anyway, the pink you see, it's just a colour, it's just a pigment I added to the polyurethane. I've now put 6 coats of polyurethane resin on the hull and on the keels. That black is where you can still see through to the acid I used to stop the oxidization. You can see where I mixed the colour differently. Looks quite cool. Anyway, there's 6 coats of that. Then the keels now also have 2 coats of epoxy resin, and there'll be another coat going on tomorrow. I'm just waiting for this one to cure properly because it was a little bit soft this morning, so I decided not to pursue it. Actually, it's a tiny bit soft still. So yeah, another coat of epoxy on that, and then I've got the epoxy primer and the anti-foul. I've just done the propeller and the propeller shaft and the rope cutter and everything. Didn't take long with a wire brush on the drill, and there it is. I don't quite know what it is. I bought it as a primer pack for a brass propeller, and I don't know if I can get this to focus, but there's quite a lot of spots there, like that one, and in the rim, see if I can get that to focus, like there, where it looks as if it's fallen apart. I can't remember seeing them when I first got the boat, but I didn't see a lot of stuff when I first got the boat, to be fair. Now I don't know what that number is, but it says 79049, and the 17 and 11 I believe is the size of the propeller itself, and then it's got RH, which I'm assuming means clockwise, right hand propeller. Right hand is forward, that is. I assume, I don't know for sure. Oh, see what cheap brushes do. Dear me, never mind. So that's done. One more coat tomorrow, and then there's a special anti-foul. Oh, there, that's it. In this light you can actually see all those kind of indentations in the brass. Or bronze. Is it bronze? It'll be bronze, won't it? I'm not sure. I think it's bronze. It will be bronze. This needs doing as well, obviously. As you can see, it's gone. That's the zinc anode, and it's absolutely gone. There's a little bit of stuff left, which is kind of a matte, kind of a gasket, but that's it, that's gone, so that means definitely replaced. I've marked off my boot strap. This was horrendous because the boot strap isn't straight, and I'm running out of time now, so I was going to buy a laser level, and a few people put me off saying there was this problem and that problem and whatever problems with using a laser level. And one of the problems was, and I checked and indeed they were correct, that this isn't a straight line. It goes from the front and it goes slightly down, and then it goes slightly up again, and then it goes very much down to the back. Now some people say, I mean, that board behind me, you can see the state of that. That boot line is just all the pot. Some people say it looks better in the water, some people say this, that, the other. I honestly don't know. But in order to put that right, I learned how to make a water level, which would have been absolutely perfect for a 10-metre boat. But I decided instead, I went to both sides of the hull, and you see the arrow pointing to a little mark. I made a mark going from the top of the blue. So I basically measured it right the way along its length, about every 8 inches or so, every foot maybe, something like that. That one's starting to disappear, but there is a mark there, I can see it. So I'm going to put the tape on for that, and as soon as I've got the anti-foul on, no, I can do it before I have the anti-foul on. As soon as I've got the epoxy primer on the hull, which will be maybe tomorrow actually, I might be able to do it tomorrow, then I can start doing the boot strap, so I'll be chuffed to bits with that. Then of course polish the hull, because you can't really tell, I don't think, on this camera, but it's disgusting. It's awful. These are the marks, I don't know why, but when you're on the hoist, these are the kind of marks they leave. It's kind of rubbed against the blue here, and then dragged it all the way up, so there's bits of gritting that'll have dragged against the hull as well. And I think that's it, it's the sand and the grit and what have you stuck in the big webbing on the hoist, and it just rubs against your hull. So yeah, there's that to do, the polishing. And then she's not anywhere even remotely close to finished, but she's ready for the water. That's the main thing. I've had the engine serviced. I think I did do a bit of a video about that, and the engines are running absolutely fine now. Well, apart from it's running too fast, I might have to get back onto them because I don't seem to be able to fix that problem, but it certainly wasn't doing that when you first came. So yeah, right, so that's over the next couple of days. I'll be doing the layers of epoxy primer and then anti-foul. What I also did today was, and I'm going to do a separate video about it, I set up directly in the centre, you should be able to see a little orange thing. It's a figure of 8 belay, and you can't see it from here. Again, directly in the centre, just above the lazy jack,
is, well, it's not the laser jack, it's a sail cover. Next to the mast, it's a tiny little Petzl T-block, and then again in the centre, attached to one of the halyards, is a carabiner hanging from a prusik knot. So I've got it all set up to climb the mast, because I need to fix this foresteer issue. I've got to get this foresteer issue sorted. I want to buy a new one, so I've got to get up the mast, find out what's going on up there, and find out the length, so I can ask them for some new wire, etc. It's all been go here. I wish I'd done more videos, but I can do some of them retrospectively. So yeah, right, I might do another one tomorrow, depending on what I'm doing.